Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Celivette Guerra. I am your host. Today, I have the life-changing Jennifer Gilmour. She is a two-time published author. Her books being Isolation Junction and Clipped Wings, both receiving awards and being Amazon bestsellers. Jennifer is an advocate for women in domestic abuse and is a public speaker for events across the UK. Jennifer brings awareness via her blog, radio interviews, social media, as well as her podcast. She is the creator of the Twitter chat #AbuseTalk, which via these outreach, Jennifer has received awards highlighting her dedication and passion in helping others. Those awards include in 2018, Most Informative Blogger Award. This was provided to her via Blogger Bash Annual Awards, and also the other award being in 2019, UK and Europe Annual Award for Using Social Media for Good, which was provided by Social Day, Social Media Marketing Awards. And with that, I welcome Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. What a fantastic introduction. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for being here. I know we're working with a little bit of delay and technical difficulties, but that's okay. We'll continue to push forward. I so want to say thank you for all the great, amazing work you're doing out there for people who are in need to get a little clarity and guidance as to dealing with a toxic relationship, regardless really if it's with a parent or a sibling or anyone else, but mostly when in a difficult, toxic or abusive relationship. So I want to take this time and thank you for everything that you have done already and the work that you've put out there.
No problem. It's only right that I do that.
So I wanted to touch base. Obviously, it sounds that personally, based on your books and everything, you've gone through dealing with and healing from a toxic relationship. I wanted to touch base a little bit and ask, when someone is in that position, what were your thoughts at that time? What were you thinking? How were you feeling when in that situation at that time?
So before I actually entered that relationship, I wanted to say that I was such a fun person to be around. I was very involved with family. I was very dedicated to that role, organising events and get-togethers. And I was the person that was quite humorous. Everybody enjoyed my company and I was really happy. Yes, I had the usual confidence issues that you get through going through the school system and, you know, general growing up kind of feelings towards your self-esteem. But I was generally quite an outgoing person. And when I entered that relationship, it was over several years and it didn't just happen overnight. It was slow, it was progressive. Things at the beginning were actually really great. I thought he was, you know, the one, this person that I was going to spend my life with. And I didn't realize what the subtle red flags that there were out there. And often we talk about the big warning red flags, and often that's almost too late because we're stuck in that situation and it's really difficult to get out. But when I look at the subtle signs, they were as simple as giving me an ultimatum to choose between going to the cinema and enjoying an evening with him because he hadn't seen me all day. And as somebody who was young and in love, I believe that this person just wanted to be around me. And how could I not spend this time with him? But there's, you know, what seemed like insignificant decisions where the starting point of him recognizing what control he could have over me as a person. And at first, events like that were very subtle and very far between. And as the relationship went on, there were incidents of jealousy. There were moments where he was putting me off going to see my family. And all of a sudden, I'm stuck in a cycle that even now looking back, it's almost, why didn't I see this coming? I felt suffocated. I had 2 children at the time, and I couldn't work. I did have a job in retail, and he just couldn't deal with me being at work. It was too hard for him to look after our children. And so I made the decision at that point to, cut off my finances by, it would be easier, better to prevent anything from happening. And when I look at the really later stages of that relationship, I'm an emotionless shell. I have to ask permission to go and use the toilet. I don't have any choices in my life. I can't make decisions for my children. I must have things neat and tidy and ready for when he gets home from work. And it almost felt like a 1950s kind of housewife style of living. Ultimately, everybody that I've spoken to after that relationship, people said my whole behaviour had changed, that the life and the soul of me had diminished. And I did feel like he had stolen physically my identity as a person. I was no longer that fun, happy Jenny that everybody could be around, that everybody wanted to socialise with. I had to constantly make up excuses of why you shouldn't invite me and why I can't be a part of that anymore. And there were sad things that happened within that area of that relationship. Like, I was at university when I met him, so it meant that I was about a 3-hour drive away from home, which is probably just down the road for everyone in the US, but to us in the UK, it's across the country. And it's a big deal being that far away from home. And by the end, I hadn't actually returned home for 2 years. I wasn't able to go to my grandfather's funeral. I missed my cousin's wedding and another great auntie's funeral. And they're the things that hurt the most, because I can't get any of that back. So it's progressive, it's slow, and it's almost like it's suffocating. You're in an invisible prison, to try and sum up in a nutshell, really, for you today.
And that's a beautiful metaphor to describe that. It really does feel as an invisible prison, and dealing with all these small, subtle exposures and controlling and losing of yourself at the same time. What was the thing that made you say enough? What was the question that you had to ask yourself that created, that jump-started that action to say, this is it for me. I deserve better?
Well, we actually had an opportunity to go away for a night, to spend some time together. And it was actually with another couple. And I thought, great, we can maybe get us back. Maybe it was having children that put something in the way for us as a couple. And when we went away, it was just a nightmare. I couldn't have fun. I couldn't enjoy myself. I was getting dressed up for the wrong reasons. It was all about me and potentially finding somebody else. And I realized at that moment that even if we're on holiday, nothing is going to work. I cannot change myself anymore. I cannot prevent this anymore. And ultimately, that was the deciding factor for him to actually separate with me. Now, he had tried to break up with me multiple times before that moment, and I believe it was just a tactic for him to pull me in further, so that I was desperate for him not to separate. However, when he actually separated with me on that occasion, I took his words literal and I actioned them, and I stood strong. I thought, I can't do this anymore. Unfortunately for me, I'm away from my family and my friends with 2 children, and his family and friends are just around the corner. So I actually had to live with him for another 2 to 3 months because he just wouldn't leave. It was the worst 2-3 months of my life. I was trying to stick by what I was saying. I was drawn in. He was also, trying to get me back at this point, and I knew I couldn't do it anymore. To be honest, I think if things hadn't gone the way they had done with my journey and the way things were put in place, who I met, I think I might have gone back, because it just got to a place of pure desperation, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support financially and emotionally from friends, family, in that situation. So it wasn't easy to stick by his decision. It was his decision, and it felt better because it wasn't really my decision that I had made in my head at the time. I was just actioning what he had decided to finally do. But yeah, it wasn't easy, and I kind of feel like it wasn't that moment that I was able to break free, because it was another few months before I actually managed to escape.
And I really do appreciate your transparency and sharing this, and the truth behind it, the fact that they do that. It does happen where they separate with you, and it's really a cycle that we tend to do a lot, where it does really pull us back in and keeps us stuck, or asking, what did we start taking the blame. What did we do wrong? What could we do different? And and they take advantage of that, and they continue on their journey, and they really think that you're going to do it again. And how empowering it is when you finally got to that moment of, this time I'm really going to choose me. And for you, I can only imagine having to be under the same roof for 2 months and feeling like that was his decision, but finally coming around to taking accountability for yourself, and then you making the decision for you without the need of an apology from him, without the need of closure, right? Because a lot of times that keeps us, some people, stuck when they're looking for the closure. And finally, by making that decision for yourself, then you started to take action as to the new direction that you were heading. And that kind of trickled down to my following question, which is, what was the new actions that you started to take to really own in the healing process and creating the new? Because as we all know, it's a yo-yo effect, right? You kind of feel empowered, and then you kind of want to fall back, and it gets difficult. So I'm just wondering, what were your actions that you can share with us today?
Yes. So for me, I've got to be honest, I didn't accept that I was in an abusive relationship for quite some time. It was a friend who had helped me out of that situation. He said it would be really good if I maybe went and got some help or support and had looked up domestic abuse. And, when you hear the words domestic abuse, I think of the physical side of things. We've got this program in England called EastEnders, and there's a character in there called Little Mo, and she's very frail, rigid, and always getting beat up. She's vulnerable, and it's always physical, and that's what we think of. That's what the media has portrayed, and that's what I would account domestic abuse as. And I forced myself to go onto an awareness program. At the time, I was entering the family court proceedings. I'd managed to get, obviously, escape, and I decided to opt into first aid, healthy eating. I did everything in my power to prove that I am a good mum, a good person, just to back myself up, because I was so scared that this could be it for me and my children. So one of those courses was a domestic abuse awareness program, and we were shown something called the Doulath Wheel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it displays the behaviours of domestic abuse. And I was asked to go through it almost like a tick sheet. And I thought, well, this isn't going to apply to me whatsoever. And after the first section, I'd, pretty much checked off all of that. I thought, okay, it's fine. It's only one section. And by the end of it, that was my realization that what had happened was a form of behavior. It wasn't my fault, and that I was a victim. It took me 9 months until after that relationship ended to recognize that what I had gone through was not my fault. I couldn't have done anything about it, and that this was something, beyond my control. At that point, that was when I decided that I was going to not only help myself, but try and help other people, because for me, it was specifically coercive control and emotional abuse. And at the time in the UK, there wasn't a law in place to help me. So there was nothing that could be done in a justice kind of way, but certainly I was eligible for a domestic abuse support worker, a family support worker, the help of my family doctor. I opted in for as much help as I could. And I think if you're willing to get support, that makes a really big difference in your life, especially after everything you have gone through in an abusive relationship. So that's probably my first takeaway. Don't be ashamed. Accept the support. You deserve to be helped through that process.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, this is so crucial when going through any sort of abuse or toxic relationship, is really allowing yourself to get the support from people that's been there or people that are going to uplift you. Try to declutter and detach from people that are placing the blame on you, the guilt, the shame, because those people aren't serving you, and really breaking free from that and reaching out and know that there's no shame and being vulnerable, right? There's strength and there's power, and you get empowered by sharing your truth, because then you allow yourself to say, I matter too, by taking those steps, by reaching out. And it doesn't matter who it may be. You had several support systems that you mentioned, but it could be a teacher, it could be a pastor, it could be a doctor, it could be a coach, it could be a therapist, it could be a psychologist. It doesn't matter. Reach out, allow yourself to give yourself permission to say, it's okay. I need to voice it, because as you talk about it, as you open up about it, then you start the healing process. So for you, once you allowed yourself to be there, to now finally see the other side of things, how did that feel once you really were able to look back and some time had passed, and you really owned the reality that, wow, I didn't know I was in that box, and now I've stepped out of it, and now I'm here, I'm experiencing the new, I'm experiencing that thing that I was so afraid of, or it was so foreign to me. How did that feel for you at that point?
So upon the realization, you can imagine it's quite scary. I was quite afraid, and I had recognized that this was a problem. It wasn't an accident. There were no excuses. It was planned out almost. And so I was very scared and felt rather quite naked in the world. That's the best way to describe it. I felt, even if I'm at home, that I need to be by my door locked to make sure that I feel safe. And going from there, I was invited to go on to a program. It's called the Recovery Toolkit, and it's rolled out across the UK for anybody that is willing to put tools into place to change their lives. And it's mainly for those that have come out of that abusive relationship, and they need to be at a stage where they're ready. So there is like an interview process almost to get onto this particular program. And I went on it. It was 14 weeks, and it covered things like grief, loss, about children, about how to look after yourself, about anger, about healthy relationships. And that, without that program, I would be stuck. I would be stuck in a rut almost. I almost say like life was on pause. And until learning how to move forward, I was then able to embrace who I'm going to be. And my now husband, he says, you deserve to be the person that you always wanted to be. And I'm not saying you go on a program and you're healed or you're recovered, but what you can do is you can equip yourself with the right tools in place specifically for you to be able to then take the next steps in your life. What does that look like? And for me, a big focus on that was my husband that I'm with now. Go into that toolkit and put some boundaries in place and have really disturbing and hurtful conversations with him on how we can be intimate. And without that willingness from him, it would be really difficult. But that's applied across everything in my life. And even to this day, I'm still working on some of those things that are left from that relationship in the past.
And I like how you mentioned that, because it is a commitment to yourself. It's a relationship that you're basically generating to get to know who you want to be, truly who you are, identifying yourself, really creating the person that you want to be. And the fact that I love that your expression is your toolkit, because the only way we can do that and heal and go to the next phase is we need to pause. You said pause, isolate, take a break. It's okay not to do nothing, because if what you're doing is healing and focusing on you, that is doing plenty already. And there's no shame in pausing. There's no shame in isolating. There's no shame in saying, stop for a moment, regather your thoughts. What is it that you want in life? Access those tools, get the training, contact those people, identify who you want to be going forward. What parts of you did you like from before, right? You're fun, Jenny, as you described it earlier, and going forward. And then you mentioned that now you have a husband, and it's a work in progress. So once some time happened and you identified with the person you wanted to be, or you are, and you came across this next phase, right, that we tend to some may fear as they move forward to a new relationship. What did you find were some trying times, or what were the steps? What was the experience as you went on to now that next phase of a new relationship?
The relationship that I have with him way before all of that happened, because I have really seen the value in how to work as a team together, and his, again, willingness to help me through the trauma that I had gone through. And we put I let him make suggestions in this as well, so I can't take all of the credit, but as an example, he said when he was a manager at work and there was one of those customers that came in that you just didn't want to deal with, he'd have a safe word or a code word that they could go to the manager with, and it could be anything. And then he would come and handle that customer. So it's almost like you're not identifying what that vulnerability is, because you're calling it something else, and you're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed. So he had a safe word in place, but it was about having those discussions in the beginning stages of coming out of that relationship. There was obviously a lot of talk about what I'd gone through. There was a lot of, programs, support workers, the family court system. It felt like my life was consumed with everything that I had been through, and it was exhausting. So I said, he doesn't want to hear it just as much as I do. So, you get that moment, you're just like, I just need space in my mind to rest. So I could say, just whatever it is, we fit it into the sentence. And he also uses it as well. He might be fed up of hearing about my situation, and he might need a break. I can imagine it's, not very nice for him to hear about everything that happened to me. So we used it quite a lot in the beginning, and we had rules around it. So if you declare the safe word, it's your responsibility to bring up that conversation, whether it's in an hour or a day or a week, and that other person has to respect that you've declared that safe word and leave it alone and stop the conversation. So there is an element of trust there. that safe word not only gave me the control over my mindset and the conversations and going on to our intimacy, but also it gave us the trust, because I knew that he is going to respect me and I can trust him. So that certainly helped us in our early parts of our relationship as we were getting to know each other and, finding out about each other as well.
That's so wonderful that because, in reality, the lesson we got is you experience a toxic relationship, and that allowed you to identify and really feel within yourself what a healthy, loving relationship really is about, which is a trust, being vulnerable, but most importantly, just understanding each other, even with the things that you might not necessarily agree with or like at the moment, but know that that doesn't have to mean something else. Is still an action of love and respect and understanding. And that's so beautiful. Now, when looking back, right, to what you have now, to what things were in the past, if there was one thing, anyone, a friend or someone that might have went through a situation like that in the past and had more knowledge that you would have loved for someone to share with you, or would have loved to know earlier in life, what would that be if anything comes up for you?
I would have hoped that somebody would have recognized the weird behavior. A lot of people said they thought he was weird, or that things were changing with me as a person, that they could talk to me about those human emotions, the change. Why is that changing? Because when somebody says domestic abuse, you don't necessarily identify that you're in that situation, but actually picking up on the changes and the shift of that person's behavior and your own behavior, that would have been relatable, and that might have led to that support. I feel that looking back, there were many missed opportunities, not just from my friends and my family, but professionals that heard about the things that I were experiencing, but yet no support or no offer to help was there. And I often find that the job is on the victim to realize it, to recognize it, and to get out. It's her responsibility to make that action. But if we make it everybody's responsibility, it would make a massive difference to society and to how we look at forms of behavior. And perhaps it would maybe change the statistics.
I agree with you completely. The fact of taking accountability and really trusting yourself, because there's that little part of you that says it, but you keep thinking the what if, oh, the false hope, right? Oh, they're going to change because they were this way in the past. And really just realizing, look at the situation you are in right now exactly for what it is, for how it feels, not based on the illusion of a hopes and dreams, and either based on a false worst case scenario, but exactly as to what it is, and connecting with that truth. And I think that's where other people were kind of mentioning it to you, but we're blind, we refuse to see it until we really take responsibility for ourselves. So that is really nicely put and explained. And I just wanted to ask, how are things now for you in life?
Oh, overall, I'm absolutely loving life. Everybody can see the change in my confidence, especially over the last year. It's been a significant change. This year, I decided to put my own oxygen mask on first. So I don't know if you've heard that on aeroplanes, you're meant to do that first and then look after everybody else. And that's what I've done this year. It's the first time I've ever put me first. And actually, I'm happier, my family's happier, and I'm more productive. So that's got to be a bonus as well. So I absolutely love life, and obviously love raising awareness of domestic abuse, because I know what much of a difference it makes to people when you share your story and you share your experiences. And honestly, I believe that something I always say is that together we're louder. I'm just one person, If we look at the statistics, there are hundreds, thousands, millions going through the same situation. And if we all tell our stories, if we all share, if we're able to, then we can help other people by doing that.
Yes. And I love that that's your quote and your motto. And I completely agree. And that's what we're doing here today, coming together, raising awareness, making a voice, creating some sort of guidance for those that really need to hear this, and they're receiving it exactly at the time that it was meant to receive it. Now, for all those lovely viewers that have connected with your story, your share, I'm back. For all those that would like to connect with you, what would be the best link or method of contact for you?
Yeah, so if you go to jennifergilmour.com, you'll be able to find me on all of the socials, but my tag everywhere is Jen L. Gilmour. So hopefully you'll be able to find me. Always happy to chat and discuss. And yeah, please reach out if I've connected with you in some way.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your time, your story, your authenticity. And I really do appreciate you and look forward to working with you in the future. And for all you guys, go ahead, reach out to her podcast, her Twitter, or, I'll purchase her book if it seems like something that is something you're connected with. And with that, I thank you all for being here. And thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. We got there in the end with the lag.
Yeah. Which is okay. This was wonderful. It was lovely.
Thank you. You never know really what, but I always